Hello, welcome to News on Depth on TVP World. I'm your host, Marie Casey. Today we'll take a look at this weekend's Intervision competition that took place in Russia, a parallel event to Eurovision, if you will, and a suggestion coming from Poland's culture minister that she feels the country should boycott Eurovision 2026 if Israel decides to participate. These events might be about entertainment and music, but it's all about tension and controversy for now. To take a look at the implications of this, I'm joined by Kacper Paradowski, coordinator of current affairs at TVP World. Hello and welcome.
Hello, Kate.
So let's start local first. We hear from Poland's culture minister, Marta Cienkowska, speaking to one of Poland's radio broadcasters today, TOK FM, saying that she feels very strongly that Poland should not participate in Eurovision 2026 if Israel decides to take part. She highlighted that this is not government policy, but something that she feels very strongly about. Let's take a look at this soundbite from her first, and then you can tell us what your thoughts are.
I would very much like for this not to become a political event, but I will share my personal opinion, not as a minister, but as a person. I believe that we should not take part in Eurovision if Israel is participating. It is with a heavy heart that I watch what is happening in that part of the world.
So what are your immediate reactions and thoughts to these words, this opinion that's coming from her?
Yes, my immediate reaction is that, as you have mentioned before, this is an opinion by an influential person, but still it is not policy. It is not official from Poland's stance. Poland is also not the first country that has spoken out in this way, and for now, the processes of preparation for Eurovision 2026 are well underway, but no moves have been made concrete on that.
I suppose there's still a lot that can change until May 2026. It's a lot of time. Do you think that a decision like this, or even words like this, could impact Polish-Jewish relations? No,
I don't believe so. I think it's not that much of a political matter. It's a cultural matter, at least it should be. And Polish-Israeli relations are very strong and decades strong, frankly. I don't think such a matter should be really having any negative influence on Polish-Israeli relations.
Like you mentioned, Poland is not the only country who has taken on this position of boycotting or initially suggesting that they will boycott Eurovision 2026. We also have Ireland, Slovenia, Iceland and the Netherlands. So this is a bit of a expanding position when it comes to the stance in regards to Israel. We have a comment coming from the Netherlands as well, from the outgoing Minister of Education, Culture and Science.
As a minister, I have no say in that. It's clearly a decision they make themselves, but I do find it tense. And I also think it's a great shame that a festival which is already 70 years old and which once began as a festival of connection is now in danger of falling apart after a period of deep division and misery.
What are your thoughts on those comments?
Much like the previous comment, it is part of a growing trend among countries. I know that the Austrians, for once, do not want such a boycott to take place, because at this stage we're talking about 6, 7, perhaps more in the future countries who have voiced their concern. But this is a very important matter strictly financially as well. The Eurovision as a concept, as a contest of music, it is being sponsored by the members of the union, the European Broadcasting Union. Now, should a third of the participants, or a fourth, or however many there might be, decide to boycott the competition, now that brings significant troubles for the financing of the project, for how it would look like come May 2026, right? So I do imagine that Austria, after the win this year, would not want to see such a boycott come through.
So we're looking at essentially an event that is meant to be fun, something that gathers lots of people together, unites countries together, essentially. It's become something that is controversial, it's becoming heavily politicized, and essentially it's causing a lot of strife and division.
Yes, and I think any fan of Eurovision would want to tell you that politics have no place in a competition like this. However, as we see and as we have seen in the past with other countries' participation, be it Belarus or Russia, which we can dive into, politics has quite a lot to do with our daily lives, and culture, same as sport, is no different. There are various bans. Let's go into Russia and Belarus, actually. So we have grown to, let's say, experience that when Russia is banned from something or is being ostracized for one thing, usually Belarus either is banned alongside it or it follows soon after, right? But in the case of Eurovision, it was actually the opposite. So in 2021, Belarus had a song that they wanted to present on Eurovision, but the song was banned by the broadcasting union because it did not comply with terms and conditions of what can be said. We have to be mindful that this was just months after the falsified 2020 elections in Belarus, when Alexander Lukashenko extended his term in power for yet another 4 years.
What was the song about?
The song was because countries' broadcasting unions are the ones who choose the songs. Because of that, in countries that are not so democratic, more so leading to the authoritarian rule, they might want to use that platform, that stage, to promote its agenda. And as you can imagine, the Lukashenko regime did not choose a song that would be speaking about freedom in the way that we would want to see it. And what followed, they were banned for this song, but they were not banned as a country, as the Belarusian Broadcasting Union. That came after they have failed to respond to the ban in any way. And the official response of the EBU was that they were banned due to not allowing freedom of speech and freedom of media specifically to be taking place in Belarus. And with Russia, the situation I think we all know in 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine. The process of Eurovision for that year was already well underway. It was February, and we're talking about a May competition. Therefore, very quickly, very promptly, several broadcasting unions from across Europe said, no, we will not be participating if Russia is, and therefore Russia has figured out a way to have their own competition. So we actually just saw Russia organize or actually resurrect its own Eurovision, or version of Eurovision, otherwise known as Intervision, and that took place this weekend. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit about what Intervision was and is, and just the difference between Intervision and Eurovision. Well, was and is, that is a great distinction, because what Intervision is now is, let's say, a political version of the Russian way of looking at a song competition. Obviously, just like with Eurovision, it has been said that the politics don't have a place there. And to be completely fair and objective, apart from messages from both Sergei Lavrov and Vladimir Putin during the song competition itself, was not too political. That is true.
But they were there.
But they were there in video form. Sergei Lavrov announced that the next competition is going to take place in Saudi Arabia next year. But they were certainly there, and the reason why this was reintroduced, Intervision, as a brand was because, well, Russia and Belarus are nowhere near coming back to Eurovision. And this is actually the topic of Eastern Express today, which will be airing at 6:20 p.m., so just in an hour. And our guest today, Dean Vuletic, was kind enough to shed some thoughts and some perspective on the Intervision of the Cold War, the one that was held in the 60s and 70s. And we can listen to that now.
Let's take a look.
Actually, the origins of Intervision go back to the 1960s. This was an initiative of Czechoslovak television in a period when relations between East and West during the Cold War were improving following the death of Stalin. So Czechoslovak television had this idea of staging the Intervision Song Contest as a way to bring together East and West. Eastern European countries were still the core of the contest, but they invited Western interval acts, often Eurovision winners, the Western media, Western record companies. And then this was something that was continued by Polish television from 1977 to 1980 as part of the festival in Sopot. And Polish television even introduced an innovation by bringing a parallel contest which brought together acts representing record companies from around the world. So when it comes to the Cold War, it certainly wasn't a Russian or Soviet invention. It was something that was led by Czechoslovakia and Poland. So really, when the Russians now say they're reviving Intervision, they're actually not reviving the Intervision, the idea of Intervision as it was during the Cold War era.
So we can say that Russia can't attend one party, so it's going to have its own party. And I suppose in some ways you can say that that's fair enough. But on the other hand, we can say that Russia's taken advantage of resurrecting Intervision and it wants to have its own political and cultural messaging. Do you think that we could see very clear elements of this, that Russia used this platform of Intervision to perhaps portray its vision of culture, especially from the point of view of its social values that it wants to portray? Do you think it used it for political propaganda? Do you think it was effective in this? Or do you think it was perhaps just an entertainment event?
Well, looking at it as an entertainment event, you could see very many similarities between Eurovision and Intervision. I believe that in terms of production quality, we can say many things about many aspects of what Russia does, but this particular event was produced quite well.
Some say it was more impressive than Eurovision.
For some, I believe you can read that on the internet. However, I think that the main thing that they wanted to focus on is the shift between what they call the decadent West and the use of LGBTQ audiences. In the Intervision, there was no such thing. They promoted as family traditional values. Like, this is something that we are good at. This is something that we are the bastion of these family values, which you can debate. Then when it comes to the countries that participated, actually, there are the 5 original BRICS countries with Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. There were more participants from Africa, including Egypt, Ethiopia. There was Brazil, South Korea, Vietnam from Asia. So really a global affair, you can certainly call that, with the Vietnamese song winning.
Do you think that in terms of Russia using this as an effective mechanism of its diplomacy, shall we say in inverted commas, of its power, of its geopolitical influence, do you think that this was an effective instrument, or do you think it was its soft diplomacy in the true sense of the word?
I think that will truly be able to be assessed when we know the type of audience that it has garnered. Will we be able to have a really true view of what those audiences were? Likely not. They might be subjected to a propaganda treatment here or there. We know already that on YouTube it was very unpopular, just several thousand views concurrently. But it has to be said that in Russia, access to YouTube is restricted, so we cannot be too hard on that estimation. But like I said, it really depends on whether this will become something more than just the Kremlin's attempt at staging their own show and proving that they also can host a great big event, international event, and that they can be the top dog. Whether that's going to be the case, well, maybe we'll see.
And just as we wrap up, what do you think of these times that we live in, that, you know, culture, or should we say popular culture, can no longer be what it is, but we speak of it in the context of politics, geopolitics, that, you know, that we can't enjoy Eurovision or Intervision for what it really is, and that essentially we're talking about it in terms of soft diplomacy or propaganda? Well,
for any fan, I think that is something that you grow to understand as a part of it. I think every time Eurovision comes around, every article is like, this is a stage that's supposed to be apolitical. You cannot portray, or you cannot play songs that have like a deeper meaning, even though, you know, we're all human, and the interpretation of songs can be swayed or can be sometimes hidden. However, I think even though we wouldn't like music or any other form of art to just serve a propaganda purpose, that is the extreme that we don't want to go into, it is quite hard to separate politics from our daily lives. And it
is very difficult indeed, but do you think that we should simply take a step back and allow artists to be artists, and take away that political theme from it and allow politicians and policymakers to just do their job?
In an ideal world, this would be the end goal. I think artists should do what artists do best, which is express themselves without having to play a role in any country's vision of foreign policy.
Okay, Kacper Paradowski, coordinator of current affairs at TVP World. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And that concludes News in Depth here on TVP World. I was your host, Marie Cato. Make sure you stay tuned for much more analysis and exclusive interviews on TVP World. Goodbye.